Well, how do you want to be called? This question was asked to you by a well-known journalist, Jan Barthes, in an interview. And you answered him, call me brother. So, dear brother.
Wonderful. I love that word. Sometimes you see His Holiness or His Highness, some mistake or complicated. And some people say His Highness. Then that means I'm something for royal family or something. So the other day I mentioned in I think 59 or 60. So I received one box cigar from Cuba. So it addressed Mr. and Mrs. Dalai Lama. So I love this, brother.
Dear brother, as president of this university, I'm very pleased to welcome you here. I'm happy and proud to welcome you to the University of Strasbourg on behalf of the entire community. Dear brother...
Then congratulations.
Thank you.
My brother, congratulations.
Thank you very much. You are our guest. We welcome you as a scientific academic community. This scientific discussion with you will be a first in France, based on 4 different thematic conversations between scientific experts and you. This conference will be an opportunity for a shared enlightening on scientific knowledge and meditation. What are the mutual contributions of neuroscience and meditation? What are the interactions between body, consciousness, and meditation? How is meditation affecting our ability to act? What are the links between body and mind? The panels will debate all these questions and more. Our university is one of the great research universities in Europe. Our roots are on both sides of the Rhine. We were born both Protestant and Catholic, both German and French. I'm also very pleased to greet all the great scientists and researchers present from far and those working day by day in our university, who make the prestige of our house. In this university, we are all committed in promoting values of humanism, plurality, dialogue, in an unceasing concert of opinions, debates, even contradiction, indeed polemics. The academic and scientific freedom allow us to be in a great research of truth. And you said yesterday to our high school pupils that for you, truths can be written on the plural. Biology, medicine, through economics, psychology, sports, humanities, theology, very large laboratories and new field of medicine take into account the whole person to be closer to the needs and expectations of patients. As builders of the society of tomorrow, our duty to science is to listen, to understand, to open new fields. Our university has a tradition of openness. That is why we invited you to share with the most renowned scientists involved in, thank you very much, in the studies of relationship between body and mind. Among them I am pleased to welcome our colleagues from Karlsruhe, Freiburg, and Basel. By their presence, they symbolize what we want to make with the European campus to open new fields of research, including human sciences. Finally, we are especially happy to welcome you to this building dedicated to supramolecular research. It is the building built by one of our Nobel Prizes, Jean-Marie Lehn. We have two other Nobel Prizes alive and still searching and teaching in our university, Martin Karplus and Jules Hoffmann. So, 3 Nobel brothers, with a 4th one, Nobel Prize of Peace. We don't forget that you are from this great community of Nobel Prize titulars. And this is also important for us. Science has to contribute to peace, and this is our commitment. Thank you very much, dear brother. We hope that your presence will be a great moment for science, for dialogue, for our conception of man, who is not a mind and a body, but a whole person. We are a humanist university. Thank you, dear brother, for being in our university. As a Catholic theologian, I would use an Aramaic expression. You are here as a visitation for us and an enlightenment. Thank you very much.
Your Holiness, my brother.
Elder brother.
Yes, yes. Please allow me to tell you how sincerely delighted I am to welcome you today in this fantastic university. Not only is it a great honor, but also an incredible joy to have the privilege of sharing this day with you. I won't be too long, but I feel so fortunate to get this chance to share very openly with you, if I may do so, of my personal convictions and maybe more importantly, some of my deep feelings. Being a physician has been my lifelong mission. I have always been very proud of it. It is sometimes a difficult art to practice, but deep inside me, the very reason why I chose this path is because I felt that doing so, I would somehow help people blossom. And I never forgot that. I believe that a physician not only is a body doctor, but also a mind doctor. Medicine can only be integrative. Spinoza used to say that the body and the mind are a unique and same thing, only look at from a different point of view. Humility, far from pride, allows one to take care of another person with patience, empathy, and respect. Teaching young physicians certainly ought to be through the enthusiastic path of understanding and mastering the incredible mechanisms of life. But I profoundly believe that you also should accompany them exploring the more tortuous and the narrowest journey to the human being's soul. Indeed, science and humanism in many aspects seems to be the key pillars of a long and wonderful learning path, which is constantly fueled with a diversity of code and culture together with a technical expertise. Acquiring and nurturing this complex symbiosis certainly is very difficult, but guiding your young caregivers in doing so definitely is a mission of a medical university. It's our responsibility to teach and transmit body and mind healthcare, to participate in changing our world, even modestly, and maybe make it better for the future generations. That's even more important when the society that you have created is sometimes so deeply hurting us. This is the ultimate paradox of the very modern and sophisticated world we live in. Then, in a better world, human beings should be able to find serenity, to forget about resentment and bitterness, to be able to forgive, But most of all, to be able to marvel. In French, s'émerveiller. It's a very difficult word to translate. You can say also enchantment. Because enchantment, s'émerveiller. Because as Albert Einstein used to think, being able to marvel, s'émerveiller, is primarily the essence of the art, science, and love. Then let's marvel about others, about ourselves, and everything that surrounds us. Because us, human beings, stardust, because all is stardust, we have to be in full harmony with our environment, as described by the great scientific concept called One Health. Then, One Health.
One head.
Yes. Yes. Then maybe, all together, we will reach our eudaimonia, your fulfilled life, as suggested the Greek philosophers. To conclude, I also wanted to share with you some of my very personal feelings. Without knowing it, you have really influenced my life, as we have already kind of met twice.
Not very clear.
The first time back in 1899, you remember probably, it was in the Saint Louis Hospital. I was at that time a very young doctor, and I was taking care of your regretted friend, Laurent Kizel. It was a long time ago. One day, you came at the hospital to visit him, and meeting you in the corridors profoundly and definitely touched me. A long time after, in 2007, which was such an important year in my life, you were invited to Nantes, and you spent the night in the Abbey of Villeneuve. You remember, brother, in the Abbey of Villeneuve in Nantes? And I reached there the day after you left.
I see. Where?
Yes.
Southern France or something? On mountain?
No, Nantes, it's west of France, with Ségolène Royal.
Right.
And I reached there the day after you left, and randomly I was attributed your room. This was for me a spiritual turning point of my life, a wonderful memory. It's right, absolutely right. So I wanted to thank you for all of that. Because for me, it has been a very long journey since then that helped me to understand so many things hidden inside me. I hope now this will make me a better man, a better physician for my patients, but most of all, better for the people I love, and for one who is very special to my heart, you, my evidence, my Emilou. My last sentence is for you, my brother. It's difficult for me, but I will try that. Kundum sem chen tam che la moi po ya tsong enge kundum layong mopayo. My Tibetan, it's not very good, but I will translate for my friends. Je vous aime parce que vous aimez les autres. It's easier for me to say that in French. Thank you, brother.
Since you're really showing genuine sort of affection or closeness feeling, so no matter how bad Tibetan you speak, I will give you forgiveness.
Yes, we now can continue, and I invite the first panel and the discussion with Wolf Singer, and you can come. And Gaël Châtelain, Antoine Lutz, and Michel de Matelin.
So we are going to start our first morning panel. It's going to be about meditation and neuroscience, and I'm pleased to present the three distinguished scientists who are going to be the speaker this morning at this panel. Let's start with my colleague, Professor Wolf Singer. So Professor Singer got his studied medicine in Munich and Paris. Has been director of the Max Planck Institute for Brain Research in Frankfurt. He's the founding director of the Frankfurt Institute for Advanced Studies and the Ernst Struckmann Institute for Brain Research. And Professor Singer has been very much involved in research in neuroscience and especially on higher cognitive functions and cognitive functions. And of course, and you'll start the panel. At your right, I'm pleased to present you our colleague from Caen, Dr. Gaël Châtelain. Dr. Châtelain is a research director in INSERM. INSERM is the French National Research Center for Health. And Dr. Châtelain is leading a research team in Caen, very much involved in studying aging and especially Alzheimer's disease. And she is coordinating a very large grant, a European grant on the effect of meditation on aging and well-being. And you are going to share us, of course, your research in the field and ask also interesting questions on this. And our third speaker in this panel is Antoine Lutz. Antoine Lutz probably was born in Alsace. It was not in your bio, but I guess so probably. You did your PhD in Paris with Varela, who is going to be honored later on this afternoon. After your PhD, you went in University of Madison in Wisconsin, and probably that's where you started your research on the topic of the effect of meditation on well-being and on brain functions and pain, and you of course are going to share us also your research in that domain. And what's interesting is that you are part of the working with closely with Gaël, because you are also part of this very large European community research grant, and we'll be very pleased to learn about, of course, your research. So we're going to start first with you, Professor Singer.
Thank you. His Holiness, my not so much elder brother. I'm extremely grateful to be here, and it's a great pleasure for me. And
I'm wondering, I'm elder or you are elder? I think most probably I'm elder.
we won't tell them. So after I have heard you in Brussels last weekend on this wonderful conference on power and care, I decided to do something completely different today. Not talk too much about neuroscience, but to ask you your opinion on a proposal that I would like to expose to you, trying to find a naturalistic explanation for the spiritual dimension of our existence. So let's see how far we get, and whether you will destroy me or whether, let's see, I'm very curious to hear what you think about it.
可是你自己有什么事？
So, I think we all experience ourselves as being a material body, but also of participating in a spiritual, in an immaterial dimension. And the goal of my little presentation is to investigate the interactions between these two domains, these two levels of our existence. So there's much evidence that the spiritual domain can influence the material world. We call this mental causation in science, and we know, and there will be many talks about this today, that spiritual practices like meditation change the brain. Then we also are aware of the fact that the conscious decision causes action. It influences the material world, it influences somehow our brains. Also, it's obvious that moral convictions, which are also immaterial entities, guide our behavior. And here in Strasbourg we have a wonderful example how a belief can erect a cathedral, something very material and beautiful. But the problem is, how can these spiritual dimensions, or the forces in this dimension, act upon a material substrate? Because if this was possible directly, it would violate all the laws of nature, because there is no good way to explain how immaterial thought can influence the brain so that the brain does what the thought wants. So there are, of course, also interactions in the other way around. Mind emerges somehow from matter, and I think evidence is ample from medicine, from neuroscience, that there's a causal relation between neuronal processes, the working of the neurons, of the brain, and mental phenomena. Perceptions are due to neuronal interactions. We have talked about this many times together with you. Thoughts, decisions, emotions, and even consciousness is somehow based on neuronal functions. If the neurons die, at least those functions disappear. So the question then remains, what causes, what makes the spiritual dimension in which we are doubtlessly embedded, and that seems to be above us, transcend us, be more than just our material existence.
Shiva, sort of. Embedded. And that seems to because this.
So,
Not?
No? Yeah, now it's better.
Not better.
Yeah, okay. So, the reason why I decided to do this today was because I heard you saying in Brussels that in reply to the dramatic problems that we are facing in the future because of our interference with the world, the Anthropocene, I remember you saying that we should strive for a secular ethics that is devoid of the idiosyncratic religious belief systems.
Idiot.
The diverse, the different. Then you told us that we should take responsibility and action rather than waiting for prayers to be heard. I was very surprised, but I was very impressed. And then you told us that do not rely on blessings as a remedy. Act, help yourself. So I thought somehow we need to find a transition between the spiritual dimension, in which you are certainly the expert, and our real world in which we move around. So here is what I think could be done. To get at the spiritual dimension without postulating an ontological dualism.
What's that? Without?
A spiritual world that is completely detached from the material world. So let's try. So the proposal is that one should consider this dimension that we call the spiritual dimension or the mental dimension as an emergent property, a property that came into the world through cultural evolution. And it is a simple idea. We know that the evolution of the brain, of the nervous system, produced man, cognitive agents, beings that are endowed with cognitive abilities, perceptions, emotions, drives, decisions, and we are even aware of the world. We can perceive it. So this is already something different from the neuronal working. And so here I think how it works. If you just look to the left side, there are neuronal networks in the brain. They become ever complex as evolution proceeds, and they produce cognitive agents. Monkeys are already cognitive agents, not as clever as we are, but and then we come in the world with our actions, with our behavior, and we understand quite well how this came about. The brain became more and more complex. Theories changed. At some stage we thought that somewhere in the brain there's a mastermind that controls everything. We now know this is no longer true. Now the brain appears as a very distributed, self-organizing system that can take the initiative but doesn't require a mastermind, does not require a dictator to function. It's self-organizing. And then also we know what happened from simple brains to complex brains. We got more and more cortical areas, neocortical areas, which allowed us to become experts in cognition, have abstract thoughts, recombine things in a way that it cannot be done by simpler animals. So we became quite interesting cognitive agents. And then comes another evolutionary step, and we have a good record for it. Because what started was a formation of networks of interacting cognitive agents, humans. And that produced cultural evolution. Started, as we saw in Brussels about 15,000 years ago, really it took off. And now this led to the emergence of a new dimension of the world, the dimension of the social realities. And I will give you examples of this. So take the right side of this picture, men interacting, forming networks, and producing a new level of reality, of thoughts, concepts, ideas, beliefs, and also our way to understand ourselves is defined in this world. So what it requires is cognitive agents like those two men who can enter a dialogue in the sense, I know that you know how I feel, or I know that you know how you know. We can mirror each other because we have so well-developed brains. And this creates new realities, new self-understandings. And if you look at this, it is a network of social interactions. It looks like the brain. It's just not neurons, but it's human beings that interact and produce a new ontological level. So, what is the nature of these realities that have come into the world as soon as humans started to develop culture? These are immaterial phenomena. One cannot see them, one cannot grasp them. They result from social interactions. and they are absent in the pre-cultural world, simply not there. We made them. They are not perceivable with the natural senses. We can't see them, we can't touch them, we can't hear them. They have to be translated. They exist in this sphere of immaterial entities. We tend, because of this, we associate them with mental, with immaterial, with spiritual dimensions. So examples, and I go quickly, is empathy. Tanya is a specialist. Fairness, greed, love, devotion. All those things only exist in societies and not in individual brains. The same is true for ethical rules, norms, commitments. Then values, belief systems like religions, moral imperatives. They're also of this kind. We have created them. And then, very important, what we attribute to each other by entering in this dialogue is that we are autonomous, intentional, free, and conscious selves. I don't say egos, selves. And all this, I think, can be accounted for quite well by assuming that the interactions between humans in the network of social communities created those concepts and dimensions which we consider as spiritual. And so there's a somewhat daring analogy that neurons relate to cognitive agents. So our neurons in the brain relate to us as a whole, as cognitive agents, as us, relate to the spiritual dimension. In both cases, there's an embedding system that transcends the properties of the respective components. So, conclusion, simple. I think it is possible to give a naturalistic account of the spiritual dimension. We don't have to assume something that cannot be accounted for by the evolution that we know of. And this, if this is true, it would lay the foundation of a secular ethics, because then we make the ethics. If it is true, it could also help to settle very nagging epistemic discussions and disputes on consciousness, on mental causation, and on the mind-body problem, because there would be a continuous evolution between what started with matter, what started with life, and then became cognitive agents, and then became this spiritual dimension in the world. And so, I thank you very much for your attention, and I'm very curious whether you destroy everything now, or whether you find this plausible. Question.
Now, historically, in East, particularly in India, seems to say 3,000 to 4,000 years. This is some of the spiritual traditions start. And then in it, the practice of shamatha, meditation. And also here, the shamatha, meditating without investigation, just simply, you see, they're focusing one object, single-pointed, so because of focusing. That we call shamatha. Then vipassana. investigation. So those spirituality which involve practice of a single-pointed mindfulness and investigation, naturally, they also pay more attention about mind. These also the different form of mental work. So, firstly, the sensorial consciousness and the mental. Sensorial consciousness very much related with brain. So, modern scientists now can explain eye consciousness, how to develop eye organ, eye sort of and brain, these things. The mental level, in ancient India, some people say, some school of thought say 8 minds. Some say 6 minds. Some even more. So the main mind consciousness or mental level consciousness, so that is a little bit mysterious now. But the real decision taken by that mind, not sensorial level of consciousness. Sensory level consciousness only sort of channel, bring information. But you see the kasurda, or judgment, this stuff so, and I say the good or bad, or very useful or not useful, all these mental level. So now that mental level consciousness, as a matter of fact, is completely independent from sensorial consciousness. That mental level, also you see, there are different levels. While the consciousness, sensorial consciousness fully function, the mental level simultaneously together, but that is more grosser. Then sleep or dreaming, no sensorial consciousness working. Then the mind or the mental consciousness a little deeper. Then without dreaming, further deeper. And then someone faint, further deeper. Now you know some now scientists like Richard Davidson. Now, so he really now showing genuine interest about the level of very, very subtle consciousness at the time of death. Say, heart beating stop. Then blood circulation on brain cease. So brain, then dead. So still the person, some cases, I think last over 50 years, at least I think 30, 40 cases. So their body remain very fresh. So including my own sort of tutor, late Lingam 13 days. The local sort of what's the doctors came to see. Then they stated dead, but body still remained very fresh. Then another person in South India, almost 3 weeks, body remained very fresh. So so therefore, you see, there are different level of consciousness on the diranda. Sensu mare. Mental. So in the West, I think the spiritual sort of tradition say not much talking, you see, about these different kind of meditation, emphasis, faith. So I was told some Jewish tradition, some branch is a certain sort of meditation, and Greek Orthodox also is some sort of tradition of practice in that meditation. So generally, say not much to talk about these Deka or these meditation. So therefore, automatically, pay not much attention about try to know about mind, function of mind or consciousness. So now, in modern time, now scientists, and particularly the brain specialist, say now you sort of showing some interest. But if may I say so, you see, so what do you say?
Your investigation is based on the culture that you're being brought up in.
Oh, yeah. So you see, only sensorial sort of consciousness, not much the deeper level.
Yeah.
So you call that something spirituality, right?
No.
Or something mysterious. Yes, it is not easy, not like the phenomena which can make sort of measurement or see, not like that, invisible. So therefore, and then particularly Jain tradition and Buddhist tradition and one part of Sangha tradition is no concept of creator. We are self-creator, self-creation. So naturally, when the emphasis, so all responsibility relying on yourself. So then action we call karma. The karma or the demarcation, good karma or bad karma related with motivation. So then motivation involved. Then motivation, not sensorial level, but deeper level. So naturally,
So therefore, naturally, there is an explanation of this, the process of how we see the reality, understand reality as it is, and on the basis level, and then based on that, how we proceed along the path and culminate in the resultant state.
So since ourselves have the responsibility, so you see, we have to know. You see, the positive action come from what kind of motivation, and harmful action come from what kind of motivation. Then the concept of Neurosciences.
Yes. So there is then the explanation of the destructive, negative emotions.
The Sanskrit word, I think,
Kleshas.
Klesh, and Tibetan word, Nyumo. So in India, Klesh is something common word. In West, the common words are Chögbudukan.
Yes. It is not so common
Chögbudukan,
terminology.
Nyumo said, no Chögbudukan, Tian's French can know, Nyumo said, Tata Ronge, Duge.
Negative emotions, disturbing emotions.
Or general to Sham Mado, Meduga. So I think this, so therefore, you see particularly according to the Jain tradition and Buddhist tradition. So a lot of sort of, I'd say, explanation about consciousness on these things and method to transform our our mind like that. So now here, since now, I think about 20 years, I found this information is something useful, but should not remain within the Buddhist tradition. This should take out from Buddhist tradition or Hindu tradition and consider academic subject. So we already compiled a few books purely the different sort of the explanation about the I usually call world of consciousness or mind, and then kasa inde jimbeni, and the different sort of philosophical views like that, not touching with Buddhism, not talking about next life, not talking about salvation or these things. This is private business. But this knowledge is related with 7 million human beings. Firstly, I think scientists like you see, you're showing now some interest about that mysterious world. So I really appreciate this kind of meeting. Time come, share with certain knowledge from East. Share with Westerner. Similarly, you share with knowledge of technology, modern science, the Asian, hardly copy from your knowledge. So we are same human being. The essential is we have this body and mind. So no matter how full knowledge about mind or not, day by day, including sleep, dreaming, this always working. So it is important to know more about the system of consciousness.
I agree.
If may I interrupt you, Your Holiness, on your right you have two European, well, they are not Indian scientists, but they are going to have a European perspective, and they explain us what they are doing on the research point of view and more maybe scientific. So,
okay, can you hear me? It's good.
Yes, fine.
Okay. All right. So, Your Holiness, I'm really glad, very happy and honored to talk with you again. Last time we talked, it was during a Mind and Life meeting in America, where we present some data that we collected with Richard Davidson. So I worked for about 10 years with Richard Davidson, and then I moved back now to France 3 years ago, and I'm starting to continue research on the neuroscience research on meditation. And I just want to start to express my deep gratitude for your presence here. I think your presence here is really a sign of that's really going to foster interest and also exchange among scientists around the theme of meditation in France and Europe. And I think it's wonderful because there's still not that much research in this area in France. So today with Gaël, we're going to share with you a very exciting research project funded by Europe that try to investigate the impact of meditation training on mental health and well-being in the aging population. So far there have been very little research efforts towards the aging population. And it's actually very important if we want to see how we can help relieving suffering, because when you look at scientific data, like on this graph here, that's show you the frequency of depression in European countries. And what is striking is that the older you get, the more frequent you get depressed. More frequently, there are feeling of sadness when you lose someone, feeling of anxiety when your body starts to get sick, feeling of loneliness. So there's really a tremendous burden for our society, and also an important societal questions. How can we help?
Before I follow up on Antoine's speaking, let me just tell you how delighted, marveled we are to have the great opportunity to present you our project on meditation practice in aging, and to discuss with you this project. So, in addition to depression, aging is also associated with an increase in sleep problems, in cognitive decline, and all these factors decrease mental health and well-being in the aging population. And all these factors are associated with increased of disease such as Alzheimer's disease. You know Alzheimer's disease. These factors interact together, and are promoted by negative emotions and stress. And we think that some of our lifestyle, so lifestyle such as cognitive activity, diet, physical activity, but also meditation, might help counteracting this effect of aging, and this way might help improving mental health and well-being in aging population and reducing the risk of Alzheimer's disease.
When you use the word meditation, what kind of single-pointed meditation?
We will discuss later.
Okay.
We will talk about that to specify. There is more and more acknowledgement in the scientific field that some of the lifestyles, as said, for example, being physically active, following a healthy diet, challenging your brain with cognitive activity, learning new languages, etc., help for the health of your brain and for healthy aging, and to protect the brain from dementia, for example. And we can reduce the risk of dementia through these factors.
Yes.
This is showing the number of cases with Alzheimer's disease that you can prevent by reducing by 10% or 25% the factors indicated here below the graph that are associated with risk for Alzheimer's disease. So low education, smoking, physical inactivity, depression. And if you reduce those factors by 10 or 25%, you can reduce the number of cases with AD by 1 to 3 million cases. So, now, as I said, those lifestyle factors might help reducing dementia, and our question and the project we will present now ask the question on whether and how meditation might also contribute to our healthy aging. And because you have this such unique experience of meditation practice, and you also start to experience aging, we are happy to get your opinion on what you think meditation can give to aging, how meditation can help us getting older and contribute to our healthy aging.
naturally, I think aging related with lucid thought.
Aging has to do with our sensorial perceptions, right? No, particularly the bodily senses.
Five sort of
The five sensorial perceptions, out of them, the bodily one.
Make now, not.
Yes. So regarding the five sensorial perceptions, we have this visual perception, auditory, olfactory, and then the taste and tactile sensations.
So that these five sensory organs is related with that mysterious consciousness you call as a spiritual summary. So that mind peace or relax, it affect body naturally. So I think my own sort of experience, the peace of mind not much affect my needs. This is more or less independence. You see, otherwise, you see as I mentioned or asked, the meditation, I think the single pointed meditation is simply one method to channelize your ability of your mind. Itself nothing. Then analytical meditation, analyze. That affects our mind. So then I think the analytical meditation, analyze, so the various, as a matter of fact, the scientists also using the analytical meditation when you carry research. At that moment, you see, some of your sort of friend, if you put one cup of coffee, you may not know. Your mind fully concentrate there. So single-pointed mind, the kandata kasuri, chikime kanda, chabacha, chebe lodi, migbola, zeshidu debar chingenti, semchichikwe kasoda, di chengdo, dingenjisati.
So the single-pointed concentration, concentrated mind, actually channelizes the investigative faculty of our mind, so that we can do the analysis single-pointedly.
So then, you see, analyze. I think mainly you see use. What is the? Is it too much worry? And all these, you see, again related with the concept of law of causality. External or internal, any sort of result or event is due to its own causes. So, the mental state sadness, it entirely depends on the cause. Cause some anxiety, some kareda. Fear, unhappiness, or these, you see, cause brings the sadness, these things. So then further investigate the real sort of external or internal, the causes of these sort of unhappiness or irritation. Further investigate. Then they simply, one sort of suggestion suggested by one great master, 8th century, when we face some tragic situation, analyze this tragic situation, you can overcome, then no need worry. Make effort. If the tragedy, no possibility to overcome, then no use too much worry. Very realistic. Very realistic. So they are understanding the reality. You see, that reduce unnecessary anxiety or kareta, namdon dhammadishati.
The different kinds of thoughts that go on in our mind.
So this analytical meditation or analytical meditation, that's very, very important. One of my friend in Ladakh, one Lama, a young Lama, he told me, see, he spent 3 years in retreat. And after 3 years retreat, he told me his sort of mental intelligence way, the sharpness of his mind little reduced. That's the clear sign.
There's a clear sign of some kind of a mental laxity building up, having built up. No, mental laxity, sinking some.
Sinking thought.
Sinking.
So, I think positive effect out of my sort of mainly analytical meditation, I think express my face. 81-year-old person, and then sleep, 9 hours sleep every night. No problem.
Your Holiness, it's what you describe is very in line with some of the empirical data that we try to collect on the impact of meditation practices on mental function and on the brain. So in the West, we over the last 2 decades, there have been many efforts to understand different techniques of meditation. In particular, practices of one-pointed attention, shine, or practice more insight, like vipassana or mindfulness. And what we start to see that it impacts processes like attention or memory, how much you can control your attention, how much your vigilance can be stable and focused. And that's very important because it is known in the field of aging that these 2 faculties, attention and memory, are the first to decrease with age and are facilitating the appearance of disease like Alzheimer. So in a way, it's a good news that this style of techniques can improve this mental capacity. Also, there are now evidence that when you practice
memory, so I don't know. There is some differences. Memory about name of people, or name of a place.
Yeah.
You see, my case now has a decrease. But memory about a certain sort of philosophical views, or even sharper.
Oh, yeah.
Not reduce.
Okay.
So it depends.
Depends on the different style of memory.
What is this sort of? What is thing? Certain thing, you see, old age, getting older, combined with your knowledge combined with experience, really immense help to increase deeper understanding. So no problem. The memory about the name, so now already there are some sign. But I usually don't care these names or positions. I don't care. So long as you described, brother, so long you see this person. You see human being, human face, And number of occasions we met, so don't care. But his name is something very special, Wolf Singer. Ooh, like that. So I always remember very easily. But some other name is very difficult. So I don't pay much attention. That also I think is one factor like that.
Mm. When there is meaning to what you rememorize, yes. But so what we found is that also in terms of the brain, when you practice like shamatha, one point in attention, and so on, it's strengthens certain brain regions, particularly frontal and limbic area, which are the exact same region that are also start to decline the fastest. So that's really for us it's a strong indication that meditation could protect you or help you to age better. And also there are some evidence in the literature now that when you regulate telomerase.
What was that?
It's an actually an enzyme that is involved in cellular aging.
Oh.
There are some evidence in the the Shamatha project in California, where they found that 3 months of intensive meditation could have an impact on the telomerase activity. There are also evidence that it's after meditation training, it impacts on inflammation related to stress. And so also some measures show that affective factor like a feeling of loneliness or social exclusion can change when you practice compassion practices and so on. So there are evidence now after 2 decades of research that meditation should in principle be able to help you to be a positive factor for aging. So that's what our research questions. So I don't have time to review this literature, so very briefly, you know some of this work already. Yes, it's Matula.
Guinea
pig. So that was one of the first studies we did in Madison when Matula and other yogis came and did a different style of practices. In that case, this study we did 1 point in attention. And as you said before, Your Holiness, this style of practice, when you concentrate, you are better at dealing with afflictive emotions. So the way we tested was to play negative sounds, and we found that indeed, during focused attention, they can regulate a brain region called the amygdala involved in emotion processing. Similarly, there's just another example when we study the impact of 3 months of meditation training in the Vipassana tradition, and we found that it impacts behavioral measure of attention stability and also EEG marker, brain marker of brain stability. So this is just example to suggesting that based on what we know right now in research, there are good evidence to think that meditation practice could be beneficial for aging.
This is also to illustrate that we start investigating with neuroimaging the impact of meditation on aging. So we had 5 expert meditators aged between 60 and 70 years old who came in Caen, in France, with the collaboration of Antoine in my lab, and were scanned, and we measured their brain metabolism. And we compared their brain metabolism, the functioning, the level of functioning of the brain. And we compare to 67 controls who have the same age, the same level of education, but didn't have experience of meditation practice. And you can see here the blue points represent the controls, and you can see the orange points who represent the 5 meditators who have more than 10,000 hours of meditation practice. And you can see that in some brain regions, you have very high metabolism functioning in the 5 expert meditators compared to controls. And what is interesting is that if we look at people who are from 20 years old to 90 years old, you can see that the metabolism, the functioning decrease with age, and in these different regions. And you can see the orange points for each region. You can see that the expert meditators do not encompass the effect of age at the same level as the controls. We wanted now to share you the European projects we have worked on with the European Consortium. We think it is a very positive message from the European Commission to have granted such a large European project on meditation in aging. And because this is the first European consortium working on this topic that has been granted to date. So this is just to illustrate that it is really a collaborative effort of different researchers, experts in France, but also in Spain, in Belgium, in Germany, in Switzerland, and in UK. And we have a whole team of a lot of people working on this project, and notably the meditation group.
So we have also assembled a team of meditation teachers who are helping us to design a meditation intervention that we're going to present in a second, so there are Mathieu La, Jean-Gérard Bloch, and several teachers that are going to help us. So we don't have time here to present the whole study. There will be essentially two parts. One study that's going to just look here at the effect of 8-week intervention on an old person suffering from reporting that they suffer from memory loss, and we're going to do the same measure in 4 different countries. In Spain, in the UK, in France, in Germany, and we'll look at the change in behavior and self-reports. And also there will be a second very large study that we're going to present in detail. That's going to take place in Caen. We're going to walk you through that. And this study will involve much more brain measure and also measure of gene expression and so on.
Okay. We don't have much time left, so I'm just telling you the main information on this project. The main information is that it's going to be 126 elderly people older than 65 years old who will, during 18 months, either meditate or learn a new language for them that is English, and a third group will not do anything special for 18 months. And we will do a lot of complementary measures, biological measures, sleep measurement, brain neuroimaging, and blood measures.
And there will be also a group of experts that we're going to invite to the lab to do the same measure. And for us, it's very important to use this group to identify the long-term impact of the brain, so we can look at brain signature, different patterns that are marker of meditation expertise. So we can really see if we found the same pattern after the training. And before we stop and ask you some question, I just want to say briefly the style of meditation that we're going to do during these 18 months, because that's something we'd be really, we'd love to get your input. So during the first 9 months, they're going to start with doing some form of mindfulness meditation, which cover practices that are just like one pointing attention on the senses, on emotions, on thoughts, on their body, and also gradually introducing some wisdom practice, more insight. So they, for 9 months, they try to understand more the nature of thoughts or emotion and perception and so on. And then during the last 9 months, they're going to be introduced also to practices of loving kindness and compassion, because we think it's important to help counteract the feeling of loneliness, the feeling of lack of meaning, and so we we're going to try to introduce also this style of practices. And we're going to finish here, but just by questions. And before we list this question, I can maybe ask one very general question. Is the following.
Antoine, if I can just say, I think we have just time for one question, not three. So
okay.
Select the one you want to ask.
Well, before I want...
Okay.
So I wanted to ask you another question first, but maybe I can say the fourth question, and then you choose, Your Holiness.
Yes.
So the question I wanted to ask is, in our society, aging is often called the golden age, but actually in our society it's not necessarily the golden age. It's associated with fear, with dread, with mental distress. And while in other culture it seems that aging is still perceived as a very positive experience. And so I'm just curious to know whether you could elaborate also about how it come that in some culture, or maybe through different techniques, meditation techniques, you can try to give meanings to aging, and such that it's become much more a source of human flourishing and not a source of mental distress. So that would be one question, or we have more specific questions that are more about the techniques.
There.
Okay.
그래서 포르투갈 그래. 그래. Complicated question. Of course, basically, West, in spite, I think, some major, I think, wonderful religious tradition, but generally materialistic life. And that also, I think, the education, very existing education, very much oriented about material value. So people come from that kind of education, then eventually their lifestyle, more materialistic life. And that, I think, also, you see, creates some kind of materialistic culture. So not much pay attention about inner value, just outside. Then become old, you can't work. And without work, you cannot get money. So I think sometimes you see as a youth-oriented somewhere, youth-oriented society, then old people, then naturally, you see, feel useless, that kind of thing. And then also, I think, relation, parent and children. Old people's home. I think in India, these Asian countries, I think generally one family, I think three generations, 4 generations live together. So they're old people, you see, mixing with their own children, grandchildren, like that. So these also, I think, makes differences, the lonely feeling or feeling of uselessness, that kind of thing. I think culture will make differences.
But so some technique of meditation could help to reinvigorate these things?
That depends, which is how much serious practice, I don't know.
Yes, really.
But I consider these are cultural heritage and lifestyle. So, not only me, but it is some expert, some scientist, some educationist. Now we're really working how to introduce in modern education field, strictly secular way, how to introduce about certain sort of study about our inner value. In order to learn, in order to introduce inner value, you have to study about the system of our emotion and mind. This should not consider
information from where come. Don't consider that simply as an academic subject. Study the better knowledge about system of mind. Then you get and that knowledge and and experience. Then I think, you see, the way of thinking will be some different.
Thank you.
This is my view.
Thank you.
I really appreciate all your sort of effort and showing genuine interest and making effort to help, let's say, society where aging people, I mean general people, and particularly aging people. So I appreciate. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And so we are going on with the next panel, and I invite Cornelius Weiler as a meditator and Gilberti to come on the stage, and myself. And it's a short time for pictures, if the photographers want to just take a short time of pictures.
Five minutes? Or when do you want us to start?
Oh, the doctor, medicine. Oh, clinical.
5 minutes, 3 minutes, 2 minutes. Okay, we're gonna start. Yeah, Your Holiness, our brother. It's absolutely fascinating to see how the neurosciences aim to disentangle the brain correlates of the mind. As medical doctors, we often have to resort to a more pragmatic approach. We are looking for remedies for our patients, even if we don't are able to understand it completely. Mindfulness, as a part, as I understand, of Tibetan medicine and Buddhism, has gained extreme popularity in the Western medical world in the last 15 to 20 years. And there are two conditions in which the application of the concept of mindfulness has passed the harsh test of the Cochrane Library, the Western Bible of evidence-based medicine, which is depression and chronic pain. And so it's a great pleasure for me to introduce two medical doctors to talk about these two topics, about the application of mindfulness. And we kick off with Gilberti, director of the Department of Psychiatry in Strasbourg and affiliated to the INSERM 1114, studied medicine in Besançon, received a PhD, as I understand, at Paris, where you have to go, Paris 6, Salpêtrière. Then he worked in Benin, and a long time in Switzerland, at the Schiff in Lausanne and the Huch in Genève. And it was already there where he started getting connected to mindfulness, as I understand, with projects which he has done there, and it took him up to here, and he's continuing this. And I'm very happy and looking forward to your talk, Jill.
Thank you, Cornelius. Your Holiness, it's a great honor for me to be here with you and with this assembly, and I thank the organizers of this extraordinary meeting. I'm a psychiatrist and a specialist of depression. Meditation is only a small part of what I call my toolbox. I'm rather a psychopharmacologist, if I might say, what is my main field of interest. Depression will concern 1 out of 5 women and 1 out of 10 men during their life in Western countries. And around half of the people who have presented one first episode will present recurrences of depression. So it's a major public health issue. We have different tools, as I said. And we have also psychotherapeutic tools. In the 90s, some colleagues, Tisdale, Segal, and Williams, developed a new therapeutic program called mindfulness-based cognitive therapy, known as MBCT. And I had the privilege to be trained by Sindel Segal when I was in Geneva. MBCT is a model of therapy which is related to cognitive therapy. But the main difference, the main innovation, was the implementation of meditation in the framework of cognitive therapy. It has been built for the prevention of depressive recurrences. Now, a lot of studies have been done about the efficacy of MBCT. Your Holiness, you know that Western scientists are fond of meta-analysis. They like concrete numbers. So, very recent meta-analysis has been published by Keuken a few months ago. And I just will say that it shows that MBCT may reduce the risk of 1 year relapse of depression by around 30%, 1/3. And it's not very far from what other therapeutic tools, including antidepressant, can do. One important question is, does MBCT works better for some situation? I mean, for certain depression or certain clinical situation. And the main result from Keuken meta-analysis was that higher severity of residual depressive symptoms, yes, at baseline. I mean, when people start MBCT, they have presented before major episodes of depression, but they are considered in remission. But even when people are in remission, they are not fully recovered. They can have some minor symptoms of depression. It is what we call residual depressive symptoms.
Yeah.
And the point here is that the higher the level of residual depressive symptoms, the better the result of MBCT. Okay. That is, it's for people with more residual symptoms that the reduction of the risk of relapse is the more important. So this result is interesting because it could be associated to some other result of some specific studies. For instance, a study done by Sindel-Segal showed that MBCT works better for people with unstable remission. That is to say, to people who are well some days and not well some other days. And for these people, the impact of MBCT on the risk of relapse is higher than for people with a stable remission. Another perspective is the one raised by a study of Williams, showing that MBCT works better or has more impact for people with more childhood traumas. The more childhood traumas, the more benefit you will have from MBCT. This also...
Yes. Yes.
Okay. And at the beginning, MBCT has been designed for the prevention of recurrences. So for people who are remitted from a previous depression. But after, people started to try also MBCT for people during the acute episodes. And what has been observed that it also works for people with acute episodes, not for people with too severe episodes, because at this time meditation is not feasible. But even with a certain level of acute symptoms of depression, it's possible to practice meditation and to follow an MBCT program. So, when we look at these different elements, we could say that MBCT seems to help when there are difficult things to cope with. If I would say it in a metaphoric way, I could say that meditation helps to navigate on an agitated sea rather than on a smooth sea. But with your permission, I will dig a little bit further in this problematic, in this view. And for this, I would come on the question of psychological mechanism of change in MBCT. What does it mean? It means that when you are following an MBCT program in order to reduce the risk of depression relapse, there will be a certain number of changes concerning psychological variables. There was an excellent review done on this question last year by van der Velden. And what they observed? They observed that indeed there are some changes associated to MBCT positive effects, that is to say...
Ruminations, correct. Ruminations.
Yes, rumination, yes.
What was meaning? I don't know.
Rumination is thinking and thinking on the same things without being able to come on another topic. Yes. Yes. So when people are following an MBCT program, and when they got a reduction of the relapse risk, we can observe that they have an increase in mindfulness. Mindfulness is a debatable construct. It's the fact of being able to be attentive in our daily life. They also have a decrease in rumination. They also have a decrease in the tendency to worry about anything. They also have an increase in self-compassion. And they also have an increase on the ability to decenter, the centering abilities, or meta-awareness. That is the possibility to see the things one step back and not be just in our emotion or in our thoughts. So, these things are interesting, but Kuijken published another study which had some other perspective on this question of psychological mechanism. Kuijken had an interest on cognitive reactivity. Cognitive reactivity is a concept which describes the ease with which during a transient dysphoric mood, a short moment of sadness, for instance, you have a tendency to start to activate depressive thinking pattern, to have, again, pessimism, rumination about your low self-esteem, your inability to build interesting in your life, and so on. So, cognitive reactivity is a characteristic of the human beings. According to the person, we have more or less tendency to have cognitive reactivity. And cognitive reactivity is associated with a higher risk of depression relapse. The higher cognitive reactivity, the higher depression risk.
아니 녀모 님이 삼을 거르다는 디프레션 연구를 왜?
Okay. So, considering this perspective, we could expect that MBCT would decrease cognitive reactivity. But in the work of Kuijken, they didn't get this result. They observed that MBCT didn't decrease cognitive reactivity. But they found another thing. They found that MBCT was decreasing the interaction between cognitive reactivity and depression relapse. It means that after MBCT, the level of cognitive reactivity was not decreased, but cognitive reactivity was not associated to a high risk of depression relapse after MBCT. So,
cognitive reactivity said
yes, about cognitive reactivity. Cognitive reactivity. I can explain again. Yes, it's a complex concept because it means when you have a transient sadness, just a transient emotion, for instance, some people have a tendency to start to think in a depressive way, to have a global view, a global negative view about themselves, about their life. It's what we call a depressive thinking pattern. And some people have a high tendency to think in this depressive way when they have a transient dysphoric mood. Some others have a low cognitive reactivity, that is to say, when they feel a transient feeling of sadness, they don't start to think in a depressive way. So it's what we call high cognitive reactivity and low cognitive reactivity. So MBCT doesn't change cognitive reactivity, at least in this study. But MBCT change the link between cognitive reactivity and depression relapse. That is to say, even if people have a high cognitive reactivity, with the help of MBCT, the risk of depression relapse is lower. So, it would be my conclusion. I already said, MBCT seems to help when there are difficult things to cope with. And I said, meditation helps, it seems that meditation helps to navigate on an agitated sea rather than on a smooth sea. And I would add now, maybe, without smoothing the sea, without changing the sea. What do you think of this perspective, Your Highness?
Yeah, it's quite complicated. I don't know. I usually have the view the individual whose sort of mental state basically sound, then certain sort of also the negative things happen may not disturb much. Your basis of the mental attitude a little bit weak, then a small instance disturb much. Like our body, there's a body element, like immune system, strong. The small virus will not disturb much. Your physical condition weak, and small things also disturb your sort of health, like that. So these, I really appreciate, you see, you try to find some sort of method or antidote to deal with these particular sort of problem. But I think these, like the physical health, overall picture important. Similarly, mind also, so you have to take look the mental health more holistic as whole. Then, otherwise I don't know. I think you know better. All this knowledge come from sort of experiment. So wonderful. The knowledge from experiment is more reliable than knowledge from theory. Sometimes may not 100% true.
Thank you. Thank you.
Can I ask you another question? We had a problem discussing last night when we prepared your visit here, and we were instructed how we to behave ourselves and what we should do. I came up with a strange question. Do you need language for meditation?
What?
Do you need language for meditation? Or is there meditation without language? And I'm asking this because there are patients who lose their capacity for language.
So within the mental consciousness, there are those of the conceptual thoughts, and then the non-conceptual thoughts.
Now, that 신주르도.
Yes. So the conceptual thoughts actually relate to objects in a manner where they kind of exclude others.
도미리 공회시부터 주 도미리 그 무슨 그게 죽사지.
Whereas with regard to the sensorial perceptions, they engage with the objects directly.
Animals also. This respect same. No language.
And they can meditate.
No. Wait. Then 다 똑바 신주고 저기디 다도 넣으시고 language 넣으시고.
Yes. So with regard to the conceptual mind, the thoughts, they have much to do with the language because of its engagement with objects by the principle of exclusion.
도미기 그렇지 쉽지 남이 라마인 반 넘버 10 직사디 시간 두고 말해. 그 지점 지도시마다. 그 다치 가서 그런 거 있는다. 나 시베 내주 있는다. 가다 십 타고 돌아야 돼. 또 벌려.
So when the sensorial perceptions operate on the objects, and they don't make such much judgment of which is which and so forth, but that is more the work of our conceptual thought.
답변은 안 돼. 아들 이지게 나로야. 다직 시베 남샤 직세 인도산에 그 지범 모두 셔동도.
So for example, in this kind of presentation that you do in English, for example, you are able to describe the mind rather broadly, not going into specific aspects of how mind works.
Whereas I think ancient Indian sort of was the kasata science of mind. It's a lot of word. Perishashana, some the simjuniche.
So in the Indian tradition, there's description of the main mind and then what are known as the different modalities of mind, and within them there are many different kinds of what we call mental factors.
And language would be one?
So in order to make all these distinctions within these states of mind, you need to use language.
Okay.
We just use mind, consciousness, and meditation.
So what you need is more specification and going into more details about the different states of mind.
So language is very important.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
And language also, you see, the language which through centuries more familiar, this subject is very important.
Yeah.
In science or technology, English language or French language is much better than Tibetan language or Hindi language. Mainly in India, so
since in ancient India,
the science any economy or politics or laws,
yes. So since in India, in the ancient times, what the great masters have done lots of investigation and examination of mind itself, and therefore they are able to make these subtle distinctions within the states of mind, and therefore we have lots of vocabulary for different states of mind. And similarly, in the case of West, you have made such an advancement in science and economy and so forth. Therefore, you have lots of vocabulary in these fields.
The Asian language, I think Sanskrit is really, I think, best language to explain these things. But now Sanskrit language, more or less dead language. So I think it seems a little bit sort of prejudiced way.
Yes.
What's that? Prejudice way.
Presumptions.
Presumptions. I think I may say Tibetan language is the best language. Because you see, the Tibetan language itself, you see, progress while translation carrying from Sanskrit certain sort of text translate into Tibetan. Then new word develop. So Sanskrit sort of word, Sanskrit language and Tibetan language very close. So today, now I have sort of so many sort of decades I notice Tibetan language is the best language to describe these things. So my old brothers, I think maybe necessary to learn Tibetan.
Yes. Thank you.
While we trying to learn English, or my case, so many of my friends, you see, they say to me, my English should improve. But I feel now, 81-year-old, now not much important. Some my sort of friend who speaks French and some Russian, they said to me, oh, you should learn Russian or French. Now waste of time. So I don't know. So therefore, you see that the
Yes. Therefore, in explaining these kind of states of mind, words becomes very important.
No, chigi, ane chigi tangbe, tongpati ko tangpasi precise yung kiachi.
Yes. Because then you could have precise words to describe the precise state of consciousness in terms of whether they are like thoughts or otherwise.
Can I add a pragmatic question to that? So if somebody has lost the ability for language, do you think it's somehow possible to teach him meditation? I mean, how could you explain this to a person?
I think simple meditation maybe, but more sophisticated meditation, then I think language is very important. Sign language to go to the very shadow.
Okay, doesn't work. Yeah.
Sign language would be rather limited.
Yeah, it doesn't work in these cases. Okay, well, I thank you very much. I mean, it was really what I hoped for.
Thank you.
We go on, I think. For those of you who don't know Jean Gérard, I have to say some words. I mean, Jean Gérard Bloch is a rheumatologist, he says, an immunologist, but I mean, he's actually a private person in a sense. He's just affiliated with Strasbourg, and still he's the motor of all of it while we are here. He has a private institute to teach meditation, and he's responsible at the university for the degree on medicine, meditation, and neuroscience at the University of Strasbourg. I don't think there's any other place in the world where you have this degree to get, or I'm not aware of that. I think it's very remarkable. Of course, he's then vice president of the National Association for the Development of Mindfulness. He's not only a doctor, he has a very broad education, which covers humanities and anything, and many, many years of experience in different traditions of medicine. He was teaming up with John Kabat-Zinn, if I'm correct, and is probably one of the experts in Tibetan medicine. And since 12 years, I heard, the protagonist of mindfulness in France. And also, I think what's special or the dedicated interest of the Dalai Lama, campaigning an alliance of medicine and mediation, or neuroscience and mediation. And I think without him, we wouldn't have this meeting here. So I really would like to thank you, Jean Gérard. Perhaps we all can thank him for this organization. And now we want to hear something.
I have to speak in this mic because this one seems not to work. Your Holiness, my brother, I am really deeply touched by your presence here, and I want really to thank you from my heart for having decided to come in our university and to discuss with scientists here in Strasbourg, in the University of Strasbourg. I am a rheumatologist, that's right. I've studied meditation and practice, and with Jean Sibilia, we had a few years ago the vision that really meditation can help patients, can help caregivers in the field where they are working, and so we decided together to settle a different program in Strasbourg. But that has been possible only because of the really visionary characteristic of you, Jean. So I want to thank you here for letting all this be possible. And also want to thank Alain Béret for you were saying that we are having this day. It's because of many people. Of course, it's not me, but also I want to say just a little word at the beginning for Alain Béret, who have been going through all the process for more than 1 year to make this possible also. And he was supposed to be here together with us, so that's why I want to say about it. So different things we had settled in Strasbourg in the last almost 10 years. First of all, patients with what you call the MBSR program in the rheumatology department. You know very well what MBSR program settled by rheumatology, knee problem, for example.
On your
And so this is just a general view, and I go through that in detail. So things we've been doing for patients with the MBSR program, we propose for patients. The idea that professionals, very young professionals, can have a good interest in meditation. So for students, both in psychology and in medicine, we settled programs. And for continual education, also for a professional, with this program of medicine, meditation, and neuroscience, and also promote research programs with meditation. And I'll just briefly say a word about a study we are doing on breast cancer with MBSR and fitness, but we have other other research in Strasbourg about MBSR program and spirituality, for example, or about also dis-automatization of cognitive functions, which is also very, very interesting. So to go to really the direct contact with patients. When patients are going and discovering meditation with just their motivation coming from their suffering, they teach us something, what we learn from patients directly from their experience. And usually the MBSR program is just 8 weeks of mindfulness meditation, so it's not so much. But very often they discover through that the difference between pain and suffering, difference between the just physiological input of pain and all the experience, which is the global experience coming from that. And that's really a discover for them, and maybe we can discuss about the general impacts in life about that. They discover also difference between being totally invaded by the pain or by their illness, and not being totally invaded and discovering some space in their life for something else than the pain. Also, they discover something which is very interesting and important for them. They usually say they see things, so they have to fight against illness, whatever it is, or against pain. And they discover through this kind of program of meditation what's the difference when they stop fighting against the illness. Which it's a beginning of acceptance. They accept that things are just as they are, which is something you were referring to before. And this completely new attitude opens really a field which can lead to heal what they are facing. And also very, very important part of this approach in medicine is the aspect of becoming active in its own health, and so it's one of the elements. It's not the other one of participatory medicine, which is so important. So maybe the first question I would like to ask you is about this aspect that they discover between the difference between pain and suffering, which is basically what they discover.
Can't you actually say talk about mental pain also?
Yes, I was especially speaking about physical pain, but there is no difference. Pain is
more or less related, according to you also, as the vocabulary.
Rheumatologist, yeah.
Pain more related with the physical. That's right.
Yes.
The suffering, the physical sort of pain, also kind of suffering, but suffering also you see can relate with mental suffering. So nice.
Okay, thank you. And so going on with...
If we were to go precisely, logically, could you, it would be rather difficult to say that pain necessarily does not mean suffering, or suffering does not necessarily mean pain as such. That there is an overlap between the two also.
Yes, I was referring in that they very usually discover that there is something which is pain, and through meditation they realize that there are a lot of thoughts, a lot of emotions, which is coming with this sort of feeling of pain, and that when they begin to explore that through meditation, they really discover some kind of difference. But
I think you can say. We can say physical pain, but because of mental attitude, you can mentally, that physical pain brings deeper satisfaction. So mental level, no suffering. Physical level, pain.
Yeah, exactly.
So you can make some distinction.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And that's some kind of thing when we look at the data, the studies, and the more recent one, looking at the effect of meditation on pain, we can summarize different effects that we see in this different data. They see an increase in the sensation of pain for meditators. Whatever meditation is used, and even short or long meditators, or when studying the effects of pain, stimulation of pain when they are meditating, or outside of a situation of meditation. So increase in the pure sensation of pain, but a decrease in the unpleasant feeling coming with pain. Also, some kind of regulation of all the process of anticipation about pain when they know that pain is going to come, and also a decrease of all the emotional experience connected with pain. And if we begin to question what could be some hypothesis of the connection between this effect on pain with meditation, and going to the four foundation of mindfulness, as it's mindfulness meditation practice that is proposed to them. With sensation of pain, we go to the first one, with this mindfulness of the body, and all the training to come back to the real sensation is maybe an explanation for that. And about unpleasant feeling that we see in the data, it's also connected to the second foundation of mindfulness. We can maybe, this is some hypothesis, relate the process of anticipation, which is maybe close to rumination we were speaking about before, to the training of mindfulness of thoughts, and finally looking at the change in the emotional experience. It's also the train in the mindfulness of emotions that can be related one to the other. So going on what we have proposed in the young students for psychology and for medicine, through meditation programs, we give them the opportunity to really explore what is very important for medical doctors and for any care professional, to explore first their own experience of pain and suffering as a human being, and to be able to develop a real practice about that. To develop also through training of meditation a possibility to be aware of their own feelings, emotions and thoughts, especially when in contact with patients in the situation of caregiving for young students, and also possibility to really meet patients at a very common human level, out of all consideration of role or of position or whatever, and begin to see how practically it's possible to abandon the posture of the expert in the relation, which is very subtle and present in many situations of caring. So they are very, it's not the only way through meditation, of course, to learn that, but we think that it's very important, especially this posture of experts. And I would be interested to know what you think about this possibility for a young student to learn through meditation these different elements.
당연히 메디테이션 쓰고 그러는데 특히들 왜들이 근데 신의 집에는 조금을 항동로 있는 조금을 저 거라 검지기로 그게 칠레면데 터네 신의도 항동 세우도가 저 따지기 미버디 내박해요 말이에요. 저들이 인도전에 따뜻을 자기 그냥 그 미버디도 개발차도 그러나 전조 공 가르쳐 있네. 지 동해를 삼다고 동해 교를 삼다고 되게 이게 마인드풀 전반적 시샤소아 전반적 신도산 된 거는 류 전반적 삼다네 독재는 주 소화 전반적 삼다네 군주는 주심 전반적 삼다네 다음에 그러죠. 최 전반적 삼다네 남대는 주지 두수 그다 이네 그 책되기 류 전반적으로는 류 거래적 삼다네 그래서 뭐시 애들이 얘네 딱 디디 내주 망고 좀 된다고.
So with regard to meditation, as I already made the distinction between focused single-pointed meditation and then the analytical meditation, which has to do with insight meditation. There are these two types of meditation, basically, and the difference between these two is not so much the focus or the object that you actually look at, but how the mind engages with that object. On the one hand, single-pointed meditation concentration just focuses on the object without doing much an analysis as such, and whereas the insight meditation, like what it does is actually you go into the different aspects and try to analyze the situation. And so in the case of the insight meditation or the mindfulness meditation that you were presenting here, with regard to these four types of mindfulness, the mindfulness of the body, with that insight, what you should be able to lead the people into is understanding that of suffering, the true suffering, the first noble truth. And then with the second mindfulness, which is the mindfulness of the feelings or sensations, the practitioner should be able to get an insight into the origin of suffering. And then with the mindfulness of mind,
attachment or anger or all these, then related with feeling.
Can I enter there? So do you think there is an... Oh, sorry, you're not finished yet. Sorry.
So, not yet finished.
No. And then mindfulness of the mind has to lead the practitioner into the understanding of this true cessation, and then the mindfulness of phenomena. Yes. And so the mindfulness of mind should lead the practitioner into the understanding of selflessness, and then the mindfulness of phenomena, which actually is related with the cessation, and then mindfulness of phenomena has to lead into the understanding of the path.
So,
yes. So you get a very broad kind of a system of how these mindfulnesses work. So what you have presented here earlier is aligned the mindfulness of body with that of the pain, and sensation of pain and so forth, which is also okay, as long as the purpose here should be to be able to help others. As long as that is fulfilled, and that kind of alignment is okay.
Could you deduce from that meditation might be different in physical disease as compared to psychotic disease? So, I mean, if you have a problem in the mind, or a problem in
동해 시대 삼다나 그런 가지고 지 서버 공연에 이제 가서 그게 쉬어서요래 미지 견주 제외는 그 많이 왜 야고를 했어 아니 그 녀다다잖아 그 맛에 왜 야고를 했어 그 노스테스터 저러 그 삼류 채도 딱그가 견주 채소 다 가지고 삼다 되는 뭐지 쉬운데 하지 딱그가 많이 왜 야고를 했어 되도
So, with regard to, it seems what you're asking is true, because we can take the example of someone who's actually cultivating patience, practicing the practice of patience, cultivating tolerance, or forgiveness. When such a practitioner meets with someone who criticizes him or her verbally, criticizing, then the person could actually put himself or herself in a situation where they could actually say, it's good that the person didn't beat me. And if someone is beaten, this practitioner is beaten, the practitioner could also think that it's good that the person didn't kill me, so that, this reinforces.
So things are so relative. Yes. So there's no absolute bad or absolute good. So everything, you see, compare. So then, when our emotion develop, looking only one dimension. So when then you see more frustration, these things happen. So when we face some problem, look from different dimension, then the intensity of dislike reduce. Okay. That's one American sort of scientist, Aaron Beck. He mentioned to me, he also is dealing with a patient who I think too much sort of mental unrest due to anger. I think a few decades sort of his sort of work, he took conclusion. When person develop anger, most cases to human being. So when the anger, you see, develop, the angry person's eye, the enemy appears something very, very negative. But actually, 90% of that negativeness is mental projection. So like that. So analyze, look, wider perspective, a different sort of angle or different dimension, then you can see the reality. I think before that kind of analytical meditation, you see, you really feel very anger or too much attachment, then thinking this line, the intensity of that emotion reduce. Then you yourself feel,
you feel that you have been rather foolish.
That during this destructive emotion happen, then whole your thinking dominated by this destructive emotion. The only sort of remedy of this emotion, again, our own mental attitude, analyze.
Like in depression. Like in depression. Yes.
Yes. The causes of that problem, analyze.
Okay.
I think I can tell you, perhaps I think now, 81-year-old, so whole my life, lot of problem. I think unless you see certain sort of method to deal this problem, now today I think 81-year-old person, too much depression. I think always look like this.
You have more to say.
Yes?
And so we were speaking about this program of medicine, meditation, and neuroscience, which is proposed as a higher education for physicians, psychologists, and neuroscientists all together. And it's quite an intensive course with 2 weeks residential, we can say retreat, even if it's not a real retreat, but with real practice of meditation in depth as possible in this short time. And also possibility to discover its epistemologic, philosophic, and scientific foundations of meditation. And through this program, as you have seen, and Antoine Lutz and Gail Shetla told you, there are different research programs with emerged. This is one of them about meditating, and I want to just take a few minutes to show you this research we are doing in Strasbourg with Eileen Lansdorfer, who is leading this research. And it's about breast cancer, ladies with breast cancer, and it's a combination of exercise and meditation. The meditation program is a MBSR program, and the fitness program is something which is very precise and already well known and well documented in other data. So the question was, could this combination help the recovery for people with breast cancer after chemotherapy? So we have designed very easy of 4 groups to compare them. One group is a control. One group is just doing the fitness, the exercise for 8 weeks, which is bicycle. Many people do that very commonly. And a program of 8 weeks meditation. And there is a 4th group in which they combine exercise and meditation, and we have two time of evaluation, initial and after the 8 weeks, through questionnaires of quality of life, through fitness, exercise to measure it, but also through fMRI and blood samples, the telomeres we were speaking about, to see if we have some indication about the life longing. So we have first observation, so it's not published data at all, but it's beginning of indication which could be interesting. It's designed to have 100 patients, and it's only the first 37. So what we see is that we have a very good tolerance for our group, which is good, but fitness level is improved in the 3 groups with interventions, and especially in the group with mixed activity. And something maybe more surprising, there is an increase of the fitness level in people who are only doing meditation, which, if it's confirmed, it's very interesting, and it's open to questions how to understand it. And Mathieu told me that you are maybe every day, or I don't know, you are yourself doing some kind of exercise and meditation, and maybe some time together. So, does it? Do you have any experience of that in your personal experience?
가서. 쪼도 삼류团이래셔. 쪼 삼류团이래. 그 디사이클 치고래. 가서 안에 맞고 가서 누구 라이트 가서.
Treadmill. No.
Treadmill. So, some sort of, what's it,
exercise.
The doctors say very bad for this. No. So now only cycling.
No.
So while cycling, some meditation. Go together. Physical exercise, mentally meditation.
Yes.
Together.
It's some kind of proposition. We don't ask people to meditate during the exercise, but some do. In both combination, they do the same at the same time, and they have a level of fitness which is increased, which is maybe interesting.
Actually, while sort of cycling, some meditation, it's because you see shortage of time. My sort of meditation usually you see 5 hours. Get up 2:30 or latest 3, and then about 4 hours morning some meditation, and afternoon around 1 hour. So while circling some meditation, then not waste of time. Otherwise, only that. At least 30 minutes wasted.
Well, thank you very much for this sharing your experience.
Then also you should practice this. That also. Very short, I think a few minutes. I'm a lazy person. Some people, you see, even 30, 40 minutes go like that. One of my friend, one kasa, Jagat kasa.
Yogi, no.
Kasa ko Jagat kasa.
Baba Ramdev.
Ramdev, my close friend. So whenever we met, I always see because of his practice, his stomach very kasota. Pepper, so I always trying to like that. So we become a very, very close friend. So he spent, I think quite kasota. I think quite long period. Perhaps it's this exercise. I feel the mental exercise really bring calm mind. Always relax. That almost, I think, mental level suffering, I think almost none. Because analytical meditation. And then, of course, certain Buddhist sort of meditation, infinite altruism, very helpful. So the mental suffering, much so related with self-centered attitude, I. Then, Buddhist philosophical views, there is no independent self. That also very helpful. One occasion in America, there's one nunnery. I give talk, and some question. One nun asked me, when
so this Christian nun asked what should she do when she becomes very agitated and irritated.
Then I told her, we Buddhists, certain sort of different sort of concept in the philosophical field. Your case, I think all sort of mental agitation very much related with self-centered. self-centered, then you should feel you are almost the center of the whole universe, something like that. So, for that kind of sort of mental sort of attitude, I feel it's very useful to thank God, Creator. Whole universe created by God. You are just insignificant because of the tiny sort of particle. So there is no basis, I'm big like that. So that thinking might reduce strong self-centered attitude. I told them like that. This made a very number. Nangwechen dame samtati til pingor. Or the dame samtago marco the soul samtago wada. Lidine jidem gobu da goshebe da nuju chimbu dinalo da nga chukagaba.
So basically, what His Holiness advised and suggested to this Christian nun was that she should see herself as a tiny part of the universe, the whole universe.
Insignificant. Whole universe, oneself, insignificant. That thinking directly sort of antidote feeling of I'm center of the world.
Antidote. Antidote.
Thank you very much, Your Holiness, brother. And we have time now to close this morning session. And I'll take my role of organizer to give some information about this time. So we ask that everybody stay seated while we are going out with Your Holiness. And then during the time between 11:30 and 1 o'clock, you have time to eat here if you want. There is something settled for that. And if you want to go out, it's possible also. But if you choose to go out, please keep your badges, because you shouldn't get in again if you don't have your badges. We have a very strict security necessity, so please take your badge if you go out. And we ask everybody to be seated and ready again at 1:45 to 1, so that we can begin on time at 1 o'clock again, just as this morning. And that should be like that. I also say that there will be a stop this afternoon at 3:30 with His Holiness, but it's the day is going on with Symposia Varela, and you are all invited to stay for this, which will be a very important and very sense moment. So thank you, and we'll see you this afternoon at 1 o'clock again.
Good. Really?
We'll go up now, and we'll go up before